This video will make your mind attract money while you sleep. Most people believe that money is created during the day, through effort, hard work, stress, and incessant thinking. But here's the paradox. No one mentions. True financial transformation doesn't begin when you're awake. It begins when you're asleep. Sounds strange, doesn't it? Yet, the moment your head hits the pillow is when your subconscious mind becomes most powerful, most honest, and most programmable. While the world rests, something within you is building abundance or reinforcing scarcity. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You may be working hard during the day, but silently sabotaging everything at night. The thoughts you repeat before bed aren't harmless. They're instructions. And whether you realize it or not, your mind is listening. That's why some people seem to have financial luck, while others remain stagnant, no matter how hard they try. The difference isn't in intelligence or opportunity. It's a silent, mental programming. Now imagine using that same moment, right before bed, to reprogram your belief system, shift your financial frequency, and activate a prosperity mindset that works while you rest. No forcing, no overthinking, just alignment. This video isn't about motivation. It's about using a hidden window of power that most people waste every night. And after seeing how it works, you'll never sleep the same way again. Why does the mind become more powerful just before sleep? Just before falling asleep, something subtle yet powerful happens in the subconscious. The noise of the day dissipates, logical vigilance relaxes, and the mind becomes exceptionally receptive to suggestions. This is why nighttime thoughts don't go unnoticed. They take root. Napoleon Hill would say, "This is the moment when the mind stops arguing and begins to listen. And when it listens, it registers." This is precisely why this period is valuable for those who wish to attract money and transform their mindset. Regarding wealth, think of it this way. During the day, the mind is busy multitasking, judging, resisting, and overthinking. At night, however, it's as if it switches from defense mode to download mode. Any emotional signal you send to the subconscious becomes part of your belief system. That's why mental programming done at night has a deeper impact than affirmations repeated randomly during the day. It's not magic. It's how the brain naturally works when it's calm, receptive, and slightly detached from logic. Many people, without realizing it, use this time against themselves, going over worries, bills, and what-ifs before bed. And you know what else? The subconscious interprets this as instructions. But imagine reversing the situation, using that same moment to activate prosperity, positive energy to attract money and financial abundance. This is where true change begins, not with effort, but with the right moment. And the right moment, especially at night, changes everything that comes after. How the subconscious mind accepts commands without resistance. The subconscious mind doesn't argue, negotiate, or verify the facts of what you tell it. It simply accepts repetition as truth, especially when emotion is involved. This is one of those non-obvious truths that most people never learn in school. Napoleon Hill would explain it simply. Your conscious mind asks, "Is that possible?" While your subconscious mind asks, "How often do you repeat that?" And whatever wins this battle of repetition will become your internal operating system. That's why mental programming works best when the mind is relaxed, not forced. When someone tries to think positive during the day but falls asleep feeling anxious, the subconscious mind follows the nighttime instruction, not the daytime intention. This is how belief systems are silently built. Over time, these beliefs shape how often a person attracts money, their decisions, their confidence, and even the opportunities they perceive or ignore. The mind isn't sabotaging you, it's obeying you. Here's the silent power that most people ignore. The subconscious mind treats imagined experiences almost the same way as real ones. When someone repeatedly visualizes financial abundance, prosperity, or success with emotion, the mind begins to accept it as normal. From there, behavior begins to change automatically. Choices seem different, risks seem safer, and action becomes more natural. And once that internal resistance disappears, something even deeper begins to happen in the next layer of the process: the hidden link between nighttime thoughts and financial outcomes. Most people look at their bank account and think it reflects their job, their luck, or the economy. Napoleon Hill would say, "Not exactly. What it really reflects is a delayed echo of past thoughts, especially those repeated at night." Nighttime thoughts carry emotional weight, and emotional weight transforms into mental programming. This is how the subconscious mind connects internal narratives with external financial abundance, often without the person realizing it. Think of your mind as a silent assistant that works while you sleep. It reorganizes priorities, filters information, and prepares you for the next day based on what it considers important. If your last thoughts are about scarcity, stress, or survival, your mind seeks evidence to confirm that narrative. But when the last signal before sleep is prosperity, clarity, and expectation, the subconscious begins to align choices and perceptions with that version of reality. That's how the frequency of prosperity silently shifts. This doesn't mean money falls from the sky overnight. That's the misconception. What changes first is awareness. Opportunities that were previously invisible suddenly become apparent. Ideas seem lighter. Decisions seem more confident. Napoleon Hill would say that it is at this moment that the flow of abundance begins to move beneath the surface. And once this flow is activated overnight, it creates momentum that leads directly to the next stage of mental transformation: autosuggestion and the principle of repetition. Napoleon Hill's idea. Napoleon Hill used to explain autosuggestion as the bridge between intention and reality. And he wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. Autosuggestion is simply the act of feeding the subconscious mind the same idea, repeatedly, until it ceases to be a wish and begins to seem like a fact. Napoleon Hill would say, "Your mind believes what you rehearse." That's why repetition, especially at night, becomes the engine behind a true prosperity mindset. This is where most people go wrong. They repeat words without emotion and expect results. But self-suggestion only works when repetition is accompanied by feeling. Saying, "I attract money" 10 times while scrolling on your phone won't do much good. Saying it slowly, calmly, just before bed, when the subconscious mind is open, is different. It's at this moment that belief systems begin to soften and reprogram your mind from the inside out, almost effortlessly. In studying successful people, Hill noticed something fascinating. They weren't louder, smarter, or luckier. They were consistent in their internal dialogue. Night after night, they internalized the same ideas. Over time, these ideas transformed into expectations, and the expectations into behavior. This is where autosuggestion ceases to be theory and begins to become identity. And once identity transforms, the next layer of transformation unfolds naturally. Emotional intensity. Why feelings matter more than words. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to vocabulary, but rather to emotion. Words are merely vehicles, but feeling is the fuel. You can repeat the right phrases every night and still see no change if there's no emotional charge behind them. This happens because mental programming only takes hold when the subconscious mind feels something real. Emotion is what tells the mind, "This matters. Hold on to this." Think of memories that never fade. They are always linked to strong emotions. The same rule applies to prosperity and financial abundance. When someone repeats an affirmation calmly, with gratitude or serene confidence, the mind registers it differently. It's not about boasting or excitement, but about sincerity. A gentle and honest feeling of, "This is possible for me," has much more power than forced positivity or loud motivation. That's why nighttime self-suggestion works so well when combined with feelings. The body is relaxed, the mind is slower, and emotions flow more naturally. A person can imagine paying bills easily, helping family, or waking up without financial stress. Simple, real scenes. These emotional snapshots begin to shape belief systems. And once the belief changes at the emotional level, the subconscious mind is ready for something deeper than mere repetition. Common mistakes made at night that block the flow of money. Most people block financial abundance at night without realizing it. They don't do it intentionally. It's a habit. Scrolling through your feed, reading bad news, rehashing arguments, stressing about bills, or falling asleep exhausted and irritated. The subconscious doesn't label this as mistakes. It treats them as instructions, and everything that is emotionally repeated before sleep silently programs the frequency of prosperity for the next day. Here's the tricky part. The mind doesn't understand sarcasm or complaints. Saying, "Of course nothing ever works out for me," might seem harmless, but the subconscious picks up on a belief being stated. Over time, these patterns form a belief system that normalizes hardship. That's why some people work hard, but feel financially stagnant. Their effort during the day is constantly negated by the mental programming done at night. Change begins with awareness, not perfection. Simply noticing what you feed your mind. Before bed already loosens your control. I suggest replacing just the last 5 minutes of worry with a calm intention. No pressure, no rituals for now. Just a pause. This pause creates space, and in that space, something important becomes possible. Something that changes the very way beliefs are formed. Reprogramming beliefs about money and self-esteem. Financial problems are rarely about money itself. They're about self-esteem disguised as finances. Deep in their subconscious, many people carry silent beliefs like, "I'm not good with money," or "prosperity isn't for people like me." These ideas didn't appear overnight. They were absorbed through repetition, environment, and emotional moments. And once a belief takes hold, it silently shapes how allowed financial abundance seems. Reprogramming your mind begins with questioning these old beliefs, not fighting against them. When someone replaces the idea that money is stressful with "money responds to clarity," the change seems small, but powerful. The subconscious begins to adjust expectations, choices, and confidence levels. This is how a prosperity mindset is rebuilt, brick by brick, thought by thought. Napoleon Hill used to say, "Change the way you see yourself, and money will change the way it presents itself to you." Nighttime becomes the perfect time for this reprogramming as defenses are lowered. A simple self-suggestion like, "I deserve prosperity," calmly repeated before bed, begins to dissolve resistance. Over time, the belief system softens, and the new patterns seem natural instead of forced. And when self-esteem and money cease to be in conflict, the subconscious mind is ready to plant something even more powerful than belief alone. The mental concept of seed and how wealth grows invisibly. Napoleon Hill used to describe the subconscious mind as fertile soil. It doesn't judge the seed, it simply cultivates what is planted. Every thought repeated with emotion becomes a seed, and night is the time when this soil is most receptive. Wealth, as in nature, doesn't appear instantly. It grows invisibly first. That's why people give up too soon. They don't see progress, so they assume nothing is happening, when in fact everything is rearranging itself beneath the surface. Think of mental programming like planting bamboo. For years, nothing seems to happen above ground, but the roots spread deep and wide. Suddenly, the growth is explosive. Financial abundance works the same way. The subconscious mind builds internal structures: confidence, awareness, expectation, long before the money physically appears. Napoleon Hill would say that this is where patience becomes power, not passivity. Each night, by planting a mental seed through self-suggestion, visualization, or gratitude, you reinforce this root system. Even if nothing seems different the next morning, the flow of abundance is silently adjusting. And when enough seeds align, the change becomes undeniable. This invisible phase of growth prepares the ground for something practical, a structure, a routine, that transforms intention into daily action. Create a simple nighttime routine to achieve abundance. Transformation doesn't require complexity, but rather consistency. A simple nightly routine is often more powerful than an elaborate plan that is never repeated. The subconscious loves patterns. When you perform the same small actions before bed, night after night, you are signaling security, intention, and focus. That's when mental programming begins to take hold, and a prosperity mindset becomes part of your identity, not just an idea. This routine doesn't require candles, crystals, or lengthy rituals. It can be as simple as 3 steps: disconnect, breathe, focus. Disconnect from the noise. Turn off your cell phone. Dim the lights. Breathe slowly for a minute to calm your body. Then, focus your mind with a clear self-suggestion related to financial abundance, such as, "While I sleep, my mind organizes prosperity." Simple, calm, repeatable. This is how the frequency of prosperity is trained effortlessly. The power lies not in doing it perfectly, but in doing it every night. Over time, the subconscious mind begins to expect this signal and responds more quickly. Sleep becomes productive, not passive. And once this routine is established, it opens the doors to a tool that amplifies everything: the ability to see, feel, and glimpse the future before it arrives. Visualization as a bridge between thought and reality. Napoleon Hill would explain visualization not as fantasy, but as rehearsal. The subconscious mind doesn't clearly distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. That's why visualization becomes such a powerful bridge between thought and reality. When someone visualizes financial abundance shortly before sleeping, the mind treats that image as a preview of what's to come, not as a wish. And previews shape preparation. This is where people overcomplicate things. Visualization isn't about imagining perfect mansions or luxury cars if that seems far-fetched. It's about realistic scenes that convey emotional truth. Opening your banking app and feeling calm. Paying bills without stress. Saying yes to something you used to avoid because of money. These small, believable scenes teach the subconscious mind what normal prosperity is. And that's how a wealth mindset is built without resistance. When visualization is done at night, the image doesn't disappear. It becomes fixed. The subconscious mind continues to process it during sleep, adjusting perception and focus. Ideas begin to emerge, confidence subtly increases, and behavior adapts effortlessly. It is at this moment that imagination ceases to be entertainment and becomes instruction. And once the mind accepts this image as possible, something even more powerful than vision comes into play: faith, certainty, and the activation of infinite intelligence. Faith is not belief without evidence, it is certainty without anxiety. When the subconscious mind perceives certainty, it stops resisting and begins to cooperate. This is what Napoleon Hill referred to as activating infinite intelligence, a state in which the mind aligns with ideas, insights, and timing that seem almost guided. It is not mysticism, it is not randomness, just a deeply focused clarity. Here's the nuance most people don't realize. Faith isn't about repeating words while secretly doubting them. That sends contradictory signals to the subconscious. Certainty, on the other hand, conveys calm. It sounds like, "I don't know how yet, but I know it's working." When that emotional tone is present before sleep, the mind relaxes and trusts. And trust is what allows the frequency of prosperity and the flow of abundance to move without internal friction. Night strengthens this process because the ego recedes. There is no pressure to prove, impress, or control. Just alignment. When someone falls asleep with quiet confidence instead of urgency, the subconscious mind interprets this as security. From this state, ideas begin to connect, intuition sharpens, and opportunities seem opportune rather than forced. And when faith becomes emotional certainty, the next shift occurs at the level of one's own identity. Identity change. Becoming someone who expects abundance. Money responds not only to effort, but to identity. People don't attract what they desire. They attract what feels natural to them, aligned with their own identity. When someone still sees themselves as someone who is trying to prosper, the subconscious keeps them in preparation mode. But the moment the identity shifts to someone who expects abundance, behavior, decisions, and confidence begin to align naturally. Expectation is a silent command to the mind. This identity shift doesn't happen overnight, nor does it require pretense. It occurs through the repetition of internal dialogue, especially at night, when a person repeatedly falls asleep with thoughts like, "Prosperity is my natural state," or "Money flows when I'm aligned." The subconscious begins to accept this version as familiar, and everything that seems familiar becomes comfortable. Comfort, then, drives action without force or anxiety. A subtle sign of this shift is emotional neutrality toward money. Less despair, less fear, more clarity. Choices seem lighter. Waiting isn't felt as scarcity. This is how a prosperity mindset stabilizes, not through excitement, but through quiet expectation. And when abundance becomes part of one's identity rather than a goal, consistency begins to do its quiet work in the background. Consistency, repetition, and a long-term wealth mindset. Nothing reprograms the subconscious mind faster than consistency. Not intensity, not bursts of motivation. Repetition over time. The mind learns through patterns, and anything that is repeated becomes familiar, then believable, and finally automatic. That's why a wealth mindset isn't built overnight, but rather built night after night. Small, consistent mental programs accumulate silently, just like money with interest. Most people underestimate the power of repetition. They think change must be drastic, but true transformation seems boring at first. Repeating the same self-suggestion every night may seem monotonous, but that's exactly why it works. The subconscious mind relaxes with repetition. Over time, old belief systems lose their emotional charge, and new ones take their place without resistance. This is how financial abundance becomes stable instead of temporary. A subtle shift begins to occur when repetition becomes routine. You no longer try to think differently. You simply think. The prosperity mindset becomes the default. And once that default is established, the results cease to seem accidental. That's when the mind becomes ready to recognize evidence in the real world, examples that show that mental programming isn't theory, it's practice meeting reality. Real-life examples of mental programming in action. Principles only matter when they manifest in real life. Mental programming isn't theory. It's observable behavior, repeated by successful people in different fields. Athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, and investors often share a silent habit. They rehearse success internally before it happens externally. The subconscious mind responds to these rehearsals by adjusting focus, confidence, and decision-making in subtle, yet powerful ways. Think of someone who visualizes calm and clarity before making big decisions. Over time, this person stops reacting impulsively. Or consider an entrepreneur who falls asleep affirming alignment and prosperity. They wake up more open to ideas, more willing to take calculated risks. These aren't miracles. They are changes in perception. The subconscious mind begins to filter reality differently, highlighting opportunities that were always there but were previously ignored. People who constantly work on their internal dialogue tend to recover more quickly from setbacks. They don't spiral downwards. They get back up. This resilience multiplies financially over time. When the mind is trained to expect solutions, it finds them. And once someone sees these patterns working in real life, the ultimate change becomes inevitable. Preparation transforms into readiness. Prepare your mind to receive opportunities and ideas. Napoleon Hill, he would explain that money rarely arrives first as cash. It arrives as an idea, a perception, a connection, a different way of seeing a problem. When the subconscious mind is programmed for prosperity, it becomes more attentive to opportunities. Not frantic, not desperate, just receptive. That's why people with a wealth-oriented mindset often say things like, "Suddenly, everything made sense," or "I simply saw a solution." Their minds have been trained to perceive. Nighttime mental programming sharpens this receptivity. When someone falls asleep, affirming alignment, abundance, and clarity, the subconscious mind continues working in the background. It connects the dots, reorganizes information, and prepares responses even before the next day begins. This is how people wake up with ideas that feel fresh and timely. It's not forced thinking, but rather guided thinking. This is the silent advantage of those who consistently program their minds. Here a subtle shift occurs. Opportunity ceases to be intimidating and becomes familiar. The person doesn't pursue every option, but recognizes the right ones more quickly. Confidence becomes more relaxed, decisions clearer. It's when prosperity stops being something external to be sought and becomes something internal to be expressed. And when the mind is fully prepared to receive, everything that follows flows much more naturally. Here's the real question. What will you actually do with everything you've just learned? Because knowledge alone doesn't change a life. Application does. Tonight, when the noise dies down and the world quiets, you'll face the same choice as always. Let your mind wander on autopilot, or intentionally program it for prosperity. One path keeps repeating the same financial patterns. The other silently reshapes your future while you sleep. So let me ask you something, honestly. What thoughts have been dominating your nights lately? Fear or faith? Scarcity or expectation? Distraction or intention? Because every night is a vow for the identity you are reinforcing and the financial reality you are building. You don't need to change everything at once, just the final moments of your day. That's where momentum is born. Tonight, choose a simple practice. An affirmation, a visualization, a moment of calm and certainty before sleep. Do this consistently. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then observe how your mindset changes, how ideas emerge, how opportunities begin to seem more visible. This is how people stop chasing money and begin to align themselves with it, silently, naturally. If this message resonated with you, if it challenged your perspective on sleep, money, and mindset, then you already know this isn't just content. It's a turning point. So subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because here, you're not just consuming videos, you're training your mind for a new level of life.